Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And people have asked us, what's your show about? Well, imagine a bunch of guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks, talking business, and you, the audience, are listening in. And today's trivia theme is entertainment. And today we actually do have a special guest, Mark Brown, to discuss, which is kind of funny because there's Mark Hanf, there's Edward Brown, and when you put them together, you got a guy named Mark Brown. Mark Brown to discuss buying seller carryback notes. So first of all, Mark Brown, tell us what a seller carryback note is.
Well, and I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody's time today. The answer to that question is it's usually a transaction done by an individual who is taking the place of the bank, right? They're going to hold the mortgage and they're going to collect the payments and administer the escrows and also receive the additional yield or return to somebody who's acting like the bank. So
okay. And how long have you been in this seller carryback market?
About 28 years, pretty much every day, for a living.
You've seen it all.
Wow.
Well, I'd like
so
to.
Mark, it sounds like you're not in California. Tell the listeners where you live and where you conduct your business.
Yes, and I live in Texas, in West Texas, and lived out here most of my life, and spent some amount of time in New York doing this as well. But at the end of the day, primarily, most of the business that I do is in the Sun Belt states, but a lot here in Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma, things like that.
Okay. So buying seller carryback notes. So, our show's broadcasting out here in San Francisco, and we talk mostly about the California real estate market. And I got to tell you, Mark, that I don't hear a whole lot of California real estate transactions happening where the seller carries back a note. I know it does happen, but it's pretty rare here in California. But and we've spoken before, so I know the answer to this. But what is it? Tell us about the seller carryback industry in Texas and other surrounding states.
Good question. Yes, Texas by far is going to be, per capita, 100,000 people. There's going to be a lot higher numbers of these seller carryback mortgages than they would be in a state like California. And primarily that's driven by how active the local banks are in the local markets. If they're pretty active, then there's not as many seller carryback mortgages. And a lot of the Sun Belt states are underbanked, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. And so in that particular case, you see more of them just because there's not more opportunities for other standard, more traditional financing to come in and actually take care of, the financing itself, especially in more rural areas and places where you don't have quite as much population.
Okay, so you have a situation where the seller wants to sell the house, and in order to attract a buyer who either A, doesn't have all cash, or B, doesn't have either the credit or some other situation why they can't get a bank loan, and the seller basically carries back the mortgage. Effectively, it's either 100% financing or maybe you see the highest is usually 100% financing. How low financing is there usually? In other words, how much of a down payment is the largest that a buyer comes in with on the seller carryback?
Well, and when you see these things in volume, you see a lot of different scenarios, and some of them will have 80 or 90% paid down, and it's usually just I could have, the price of the property was say 200,000, and I only.
Back up for a minute. What I mean is, okay, Mr. Seller is selling his house. When the buyer first comes in, do they put down 30% and the seller carryback is 70?
Gotcha. Typically more like a 90-10. Yeah.
90-10. Okay. Which is probably one of the reasons why they can't get bank financing, because there aren't too many banks that want to do 90% loan to value.
Yeah, okay. Correct. That's true. Yes, sir.
Right. But the benefit, though, the reason that you're in this business is because you're buying those notes. Now, we on the Best of Investing here in Mark's company, Pacific Private Money, we don't do 90% fire. They don't do 90% financing. They'll do a lot less. So where do you come in with those loans.
When you say where do I come in, you mean?
Yeah, in other words, you're not going to, if someone, let's say, sells a house for 100,000 and the buyer comes in with 10 and the seller carries the note at 90,000, I assume you're not going to go in there and buy the note at 90,000.
Correct. We'll assume for easy math here that maybe there's a 6% yield or 6% coupon rate or interest rate on the mortgage note itself. And so if we buy the loan, then we're probably buying, if the balance is 90, we're probably buying the loan at, 62 or 3,000, something like that.
Okay. And you usually don't buy loans like right out the gate, right? They have to have some seasoning to them, right?
Yes. And usually the more seasoning they have, the more valuable they are to us. I mean, if they've had, say, 10 or 12 or 15 years worth of pay history against, say, a 30-year mortgage, then yeah, they're much, it helps mitigate the risks around, bad credit or, LTV or things that would add additional risk to the investment. So.
All right, we're gonna continue on with this because we had a bunch of questions on this. I know the audience would be interested in hearing. All right, here's our first trivia question on entertainment. And again, Mark, if you know the answer, don't say anything until we get back. In what state is Oral Roberts University located? All right. Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win the tanning certificate. What state is Oral Roberts University located? And want to make a quick mention here for Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Believe it or not, they are open, but they're open for only takeout and delivery. So for all of you shelter-in-place people who are looking to, want to go out for food, why don't you just have pizza delivered to your house, or just go and pick it up and bring it home? Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael, 454-4300, area code 415. Very good pizza. Check them out. All right, stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money, and our special guest, Mark Brown, discussing seller carryback notes. But we want to answer our first trivia question here. In what state is Oral Roberts University located? Anyone?
I don't know. I don't care.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's near you, Mark. I thought you'd know that.
Yeah.
I don't even know that, but I've been on campus a time or two just passing through town, so I'm familiar with it. It's a big place.
So we have special guest Mark Brown on. Mark Brown is in Texas, and he has a business that purchases seller carryback notes in and around the Texas markets. And Mark, so you buy these loans to sell to investors. What kind of yield do these loans provide, given that you're typically buying them from the sellers at a discount?
And that's a good question. And typically on something like that, we're usually achieving a yield that's north of a 12 number, and from there, obviously they could go higher, but a lot of the yield is really based also on the risk itself. The file's riskier, then the yield gets a lot higher, and if the file's less risky, then the yield's a little bit lower. So in general,
so you were saying, so 12%, that's an amazing return. So you were talking earlier that, oftentimes the coupon could be 6%, but I'm also guessing that sometimes those coupons can be higher, particularly, if it's maybe a 90% financing. So you're buying these at a discount, which obviously it causes that yield to increase. So why don't you tell us, why typically would someone discount or even significantly discount the face value of that loan to someone like you?
Yes, sir. Well, that's a good question, and we deal with a lot of people, several thousand of them a year, and the reason that someone would take a discount on a mortgage like that, especially a paying mortgage, one that doesn't appear to have any impediments to it, really boils down to their particular needs. At the end of the day, it kind of boils down to one single fact. If these borrowers, or these note holders, or these individuals who are holding these mortgages, if they take that mortgage and they need money, and they go to their local bank and they lay it on their banker's desk and they say, I'd like to borrow money to get this, or I'd like to, better yet, I'd like to sell this mortgage to the bank and I'd like a par price for that mortgage or the balance, then the banks usually, or at least in this region, will laugh them right out the building. And so there's not a market for these things. And so what little market we make out of it is really the only market there is for these things. The majority of reasons that people need these monies and the reasons they would take a discount of this size, usually it's a long list, but that list can be shortened down to the number one answer is usually cancer. The second answer is usually an heirship situation where maybe mom and dad owned this mortgage and we're collecting it for 10 years. They pass and now the heirs have it. And you got 9 or 10 heirs trying to split a $750 payment every month. And it just doesn't make sense for them. Or there's an heirship situation and they can't probate the estate and close the estate off because they've got this asset hung out there that they can't find a home to sell it to.
Well, and generally,
Wow.
you know, if you're looking at seller carryback notes that were originally 30 years and they're 10 years old, which is good because that's had some good seasoning, you still have 20 years to go. And so from the market standpoint, it's like not that many people want to buy an investment that's got 20 years left to go, generally speaking.
Yes, that's correct. And that's the other complication to this particular business is that it does require, a commitment of money. And that commitment is a very long, long-winded. I mean, it could easily be 20 months. Matter of fact, I believe the average length of payments left to be received on mortgages we buy is about 167 months.
Okay, so
Wow. So Mark, what's a typical discount that you are offering or looking to achieve from the remaining principal balance of those loans you're buying?
Well, and again, that obviously depends on the risk of the loan itself, obviously, but in general, if we can't achieve a yield north of 12, we usually don't try to spend time trying to get into it. A lot of these loans these are non-conforming loans, right? And the documentation is non-conforming, and that's obviously another reason why the banks wouldn't want to, be a party to these loans. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it requires quite a bit of work. Well,
yeah, because the bank is not going to be doing an underwriting on the borrower.
Right. And the other problem is that a lot of times the very little underwriting did happen of the borrower. And so a lot of times the first time we come along, that's the first time the note holder may even understand his borrower's actual credit capacities. So
gotcha. But I guess from your
the other part of your business, Mark, is you're selling these loans, right, to investors. Presumably you have an investor distribution list that you make these available to. How does someone find someone like you? How does someone get on your list and see opportunities to invest in discounted seller carryback notes?
Yes, sir. Well, and I think the question to that is, to try to contact us here. And I think in general, mostly what we're trying to accomplish here and what we want to try to articulate on this, this time is really just that we're really looking to try to branch out here, and that we have really too many of these and not enough money to buy them all. And I know that sounds kind of like an interesting scenario to have happen to you, but at the end of the day, that turns out to be a fact. And so I think what we're looking for today is strategic partners or someone, that has the capacities to come in and buy these in giant bulk and is comfortable with the kind of collateral it is and the kind of yields that are achievable through it. And I would say that they're definitely above market yields, no question about that.
Yeah, and I guess from a risk standpoint, you definitely have to have a lot of seasoning on the notes, especially because they'll be amortizing. If you've got a 90% LTV note, if it's only 2 years old, that LTV, unless the price has gone way up in the house, is still close to 90%. So it would have to be severely discounted.
Yes, and sometimes they are severely discounted, and that is just the only way to address it. I mean, there are other methodologies to buy the notes that are, super high loan to value like that, where we might just buy, 5 years or 10 years of the payments. And then after that's over, the loan reverts back to the note holder. But in general, if they want to sell and we're the only option for them to sell to, then the discount's pretty heavy, or it certainly can be from time to time.
And then from your standpoint, what you're looking at is at the price that you're buying it at the discounted price, what's that compared to the price of the house? Because that's going to be your loan to value.
Absolutely, or
Yeah.
investment to final value. Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, sir. And on something like that, we're usually below 65% all the time, and lots of times we're in the 20s and 30s and 40%.
Okay. When we come back, I do want to ask you about your experience, default rate, that sort of thing, and foreclosures. Okay. Second trivia question is, and Mark and Nam, you'll love this because it has to do with mathematics. What is the branch of mathematics that deals with the size and shape of objects? All right, call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate, which again, you can use after the shelter in place. What is the branch of mathematics that deals with the shape, size, and shape of objects? All right, you are listening to The Best of Investing. Stay with us. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Again, one more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and Nam Phan. Second trivia question was, what is the branch of mathematics that deals with the shape and size of objects? Gentlemen?
Is it geometry?
It's a geometry, that's right. All right, and
geometry is too.
Geometry, that's right. On the line here, we have Mark Brown from Texas, who specializes in purchasing discounted seller carryback notes. And Mark, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, in your 28 years of experience on this, how often have you, as the new note holder from purchasing a discounted note, had to foreclose on a house?
Well, I'd say in my particular case, well, many hundreds of times, but my volume and my experience is pretty deep, so lots of times. I would say in general, if you have a pool of these things and they're relatively straightforwardly underwritten, you really ought to expect maybe a foreclosure rate or a default rate somewhere around the 5% range. And a lot of that can be mitigated based on how the borrowers are serviced and how they're managed, and when they do run into a time like today where they may have a legitimate reason why their ability to make a payment this month or next may be impaired in some way, trying to be sensitive to those things and trying to work through those with them if you can. So.
Is that like a bank is a typical about 4 or 5% also on their default rate?
My experience has been, somewhere between 3.75 and 4.5, depending on, are they in a prime borrower or, Alt-A, or what the specific category of, mortgage debt might be.
And then when you've had to go through the foreclosure process, have you, what's your experience with, making money because you bought the loan so discounted that you were able to sell the house for more, or had to take a loss?
We haven't had to take a whole lot of losses over the years. We have had to take losses like everybody has in that business. But at the end of the day, I would say that if we have to foreclose, 100 houses over some period of time, then 80 or 90% of those houses will all return back the amount of the investment plus. That's usually a common thing, because again, if you're buying the mortgage and you're at 50 cents of the value, then if there was a down payment at all, you should easily be able to resell the property, assuming that there's not some collapse in market price or something else that would have given you.
Well, let me ask you, on the loans that actually, you said a few of them you actually had losses. What was the reason? Was it just that the price of the house plummeted that much, or was there something else?
Well, generally, most of those were going to be in 2009, 10, and 11 after the 08 crisis, where you just couldn't, there was not a lot of lending, and you had depressed prices on the properties themselves and depressed, job markets and things of that nature, which really kind of pushed down the capacity for the average regular guy to be able to get into one of these mortgages.
Okay.
So Mark, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but with everything that's gone on in the last 6 weeks, what do you see happening in the space with borrowers and some of the sellers who are carrying back these notes?
That is an excellent question, and to be candid with you, on what I've seen in the last, let's just call it out as 30 days or maybe 40 now, what I've seen is a complete sea change in the attitude of the average note holder. And so maybe to describe that in some straightforward way, maybe as of September, October of last year, when you were talking to these folks on the phone and they say had a coupon rate of 6 on their mortgage that they were owning and collecting, then from there they kind of were like, well, I've got this six coupon, and it's going to take quite a bit for you to wrestle this thing from me. So the price is going to have to be high, or it's going to have to be close. And since then, there's been a sea change in their attitude. It's a lot less about, you know, hey, this is the greatest, you know, yield in the world, and down to the, I actually need money now, and this is a problem. And this turns out to be an asset that I actually can put up on the street and actually resolve some cash out of this thing, and then take that and then try to address their issues. Trying to go back for a second to discuss the borrowers and what we've seen. I'm not holding quite as few mortgages today as I would typically hold, which would usually be, you know, 200, 300, 400 of these things at one time. But in my experience across our portfolios, plus everybody we've spoken to on the phone in the last month or 6 weeks, what we've noticed is we have almost no examples at all of these borrowers actually missing payments. Now, that could just be a fluke because maybe my sample size is too small, or maybe these mortgages just happen to be in certain towns or areas. But I've yet to run into anybody who hasn't seen April and March and April's installments show up, and pretty timely. There has been a handful of folks that just forgave the monthly payment or the interest accumulation over those two payments. But for the most part, most of them are paying, and
yeah, I wonder how many of the sellers of these notes are just nervous about the economy in general, and they're afraid that their borrowers are going to stop paying, so they want to get out now.
Yes, I would say that my thought on that's probably 85 or 90%. Yes, they like I say, as a sea change, they are uniformly spooked about the market and where it would go, and what is that technical impact on their borrower.
Good. So, Mark, if anybody in the audience is listening and interested to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you?
Yes, and that'd be great. And at the end of the day, we'd love to talk to anybody that would love to, you know, have a long, in-depth conversation about the opportunity for an above-market yield and, you know, in a fixed income capacity like this. So, yeah, it's Mark Brown, just like the color, and the number here is area code 806-748-1305, and we're here during all, you know, usual standard business hours, and be happy to talk to you about it.
All right, very good.
What are some of the loan sizes, the loan size range, Mark, that people can invest in? Because I know here in California, well, at Pacific Private Money, our average loan size is almost $1 million. So it takes someone with means, or a group of people with means, to invest in our notes. What's kind of the low, mid, and high range of loan sizes that you're selling?
Well, and most of them, I'd say, if you go back and look at the last, you know, several thousand, it turns out to be about $44,000 a piece is the average loan balance size, and a lot of that's got to do indicatively with the, you know, the real estate markets that we deal in. Obviously, we wouldn't be in markets that are quite as high, you know, in sizes, values, and price ranges as you guys would be, but we usually make it up in volumes on that. And
well, that's great. Mm-hmm. So 44,000, that means that you probably have some for 20, 25,000 and others for 30, 40, 50,000. That's a pretty diverse range of investment opportunities.
Yes, sir. And there should be lots of places for folks to find something that are in the six-figure range or higher. I mean, we see lots of that, but on average, it's about 44,000.
All right, guys, cutting to our third commercial trivia question here. Who attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan in 1981? Who was that rascal? All right, call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Again, the question is, who attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan in 1981? You guys remember that?
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and do you remember the reason? That's the other part of the question.
I know, yeah.
All right.
Yes, we do.
All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Last time for today. Actually, not last time, but almost last time for today, because we'll have one more commercial break. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. Third trivia question. Who attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan in 1981? Who was that?
John Hinckley.
John Hinckley, yeah. Do you remember the reason?
Nice.
I don't remember.
Jody Foster.
He wanted to impress Jody Foster. Yeah, that's how you impress someone, is to try to assassinate a president. Okay, so now moving on here, I wanted to ask Mark and Nam about this. I saw an article, I think it was yesterday, that said new rules about distancing between employees, right? Everyone's going to have to, the new norm seems to be social distancing, right? We don't know when that's going to go back to, you know, everyone can just pile on top of each other. Employee
Wow.
tenants are they are they going to need more space because everyone will have to get spread out more, and what will happen to the rental rates for commercial space? I read one article that said, or one part said, well, rates are going to go, commercial tenant rental rates are going to go down because employers are going to say, we can't afford if we have to have X amount of space, but we only have half the capacity of those employees. The other part I'm thinking is, yeah, but wait a minute, if you have to have 25 employees, you're going to have to get another building. You know what I mean? It's going to be the supply and demand of that. Comments from you guys on that? What do you think?
Well, my first comment is that I really try not to read too much of the doom and gloom, what if prognostications about just how bad this could all devolve into. I think that this is going to turn out to be not as bad as many in the media are predicting. I think we're going to start seeing a loosening trend among counties and states. And I think we're going to see also a pretty robust recovery among some segments of the marketplace. Not all of them. Some are going to be irreparably damaged, and I would say that probably includes restaurants and hospitality and travel related. It's just going to take a little while for many to start up. I know we tend to focus on real estate here at the Best of Investing, and I think real estate prices, particularly in California, I read some posts expecting a 30% decline. I think that's complete and utter hogwash. The law of supply and demand is rarely broken, if ever, and we don't have the supply, and we do have the demand. And shutting down the market for 60 days isn't going to change the supply of housing, and it's not even going to change the demand all that much. So there's just nothing that would support a claim or expectation or hope among some, hopeful investors who hope to reprise their investment opportunities of 2009, 10, and 11, where you could buy homes for pennies on the dollar. I don't see that happening. And so when you hear a report like this saying, well, we're going to have to limit the number of people in the office, and everyone, per person is going to have 500 square feet each. That's a lot of talk among, quite frankly, stupid politicians who don't know what they're talking about, who would only serve to bankrupt even more companies than are going to be bankrupting already. I don't believe any of that stuff's going to come to pass. Neither do I believe that laws such as rent moratoriums for 12 months or don't have to make a mortgage payment for 12 months. I think all that stuff is just part of the media's natural tendency towards hysteria, because if it bleeds, it leads. That's always been true. It always will be true. And I choose to get my news from sources that, for better or worse, are not printed on the headlines of the newspapers.
Gotcha.
So I just don't see that coming to pass. I think that's just a lot of, it just feels like everything's, for some people, that everything's going to heck in a handbasket. But quite frankly, I think we've actually turned the corner. We're going to see some relaxation here pretty soon.
All right.
You know what they should do is all the sick people come to work the same day. They can stay as close together as they want. And then the next day, all the healthy people.
Okay.
And then they just alternate and clean in between. There you go.
All right. So, Nam, why don't you give us a deal of the week, kind of back up just a little bit, explain to the audience what Pacific Private Money does, and give us a deal of the week.
Sure. Yeah, so Pacific Private Money, we're California-based alternative finance lenders. We lend on real estate, primarily residential real estate, when borrowers come to us for a number of reasons, typically when they can't get bank financing, but there's a lot of reasons why they can't. It's not just somebody with derogatory credit. In fact, most of the time for us here in California, it's just either speed or it's just a scenario where a bank is not going to be able to lend to them. And this week's deal of the week is an example of that. The borrower came to us because the borrower came to us from a new builder. So it's a new development builder who has on-site real estate office, found one of our agents and said, hey, can you help this client out? They're buying one of our homes that's done, but they haven't sold their home yet. So they came to us, and like other scenarios where somebody's buying, a property but haven't sold their existing home yet, if they went to a bank, the bank would say, no, you have to sell your current home in order to free up the capital to purchase the new home. With our bridge loan, that allows those homeowners to go ahead and complete that purchase before selling their departing residence. And same thing, if it's a new build that they're buying, new build being a new home that's being constructed by, in a community, new home community, we can provide the financing for the purchase of that new home before they sell their departing residence. So it's an area that we're actually going to focus on. Is a lot of new developments have homes that are completed or are almost completed, but people want to buy them. They haven't sold their departing residence yet. That's a scenario where we can provide that bridge financing. They pay us off once they sell their departing residence. So just another bridge loan, but in this case, it was a new build that they were buying, and we were able to come in and provide the financing.
All right. And how do people get a hold of you if they need quick financing?
They can give us a call at 415-883-2150, or they can go online at www.pacificprivatemoney.com.
All right. And a quick email comes in, says, do your loans, do the loans you provide have prepayment penalties?
Typically, no. We're in the short-term bridge lending specialty where people need our money either for a short duration or they need it, really quickly, and also typically for a short duration. So while many lenders in our space do have prepayment penalties or minimum interest guarantees, which is basically saying, hey, you promised to make at least 6 months worth of payments. If you pay it back early, you still owe us. We generally write our loans for no prepayment penalties. So you can use our money for as little or as long as you like, as long as you pay it back within a typical 12-month note rate period.
Very good. Okay. We've got about 20 seconds before we have to cut to a break. So, Nam, why don't you give out information one more time of Pacific Private Money?
Yeah, they can call us at 415-883-2150 or go online at www.pacificprivatemoney.com. And if you missed our webinar, call or email us, and we'll send you the video recording. It was really well received.
Very good. All right, guys, we're going to cut to our last commercial break. We come back. Best of Investing will have some closing comments. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. Our special guest, Mark Brown of Texas, wants to make a quick shout out. So, Mark, go ahead and give it out.
Well, I just want to tell my daughter, who turns 13 today, happy birthday, young lady, and Dad loves you, -- so happy birthday.
That's right. She was saying, yeah, Dad, I don't know if you ever do this radio and YouTube stuff, so I'll believe it when I hear it. That's about right. So, hey, Mark Hanf,
yes.
You also raise money for a fund that makes the loans that Nam was just mentioning before in the last segment. How do people invest with you? What's the procedure?
So we actually have several investment opportunities that we offer our clients at Pacific Private Money. All of them, in one form or fashion, are secured by real estate. So, because essentially all we do at Pacific Private Money is make real estate secured loans. We don't make business loans. We don't do, leased equipment loans or personal property loans. All of our loans are secured by one or more properties, typically in first position, sometimes in junior position, depending on, how much equity is in the property. And our primary fund, and I call it primary because it's the one we established back in 2013. So it's 7 years old, and the balance of that fund, the investor balance, is up to $60 million now. And we call that the Pacific Private Money Fund. And that fund has been paying about, in the high 7% range, 7.5% to 8%, pretty consistently for the past 7 years. And then we've got a couple of other new funds that we've launched that also provide opportunities for different yields secured by different asset classes. For example, the North Star Capital Fund that we just launched is strictly for construction loans, and that one's designed to provide, a higher yield. And we think the market right now is going to be very interested in a new fund that doesn't have legacy loans, that will serve the construction industry, because I tell you, builders and contractors and major remodelers, they're sorely in need of capital right now. And the banks are going to pull back after this COVID recession, just like they did in 2007 and 2008. The banks were nowhere to be found to help contractors, builders, and real estate investors buy real estate and remodel real estate. So we're pretty excited about that. And then lastly, we have a fund that mimics a money market account, where we pay a flat 7% for people to park their money for short periods of time. We call that the Freedom Fund. So we're pretty excited about our series of investments. Last but not least, we still do work with individual investors who want to invest in an individual note, either whole or fractional. So we have a fairly large menu of investment opportunities at Pacific Private Money. And so for more information, not all of our new funds have made it yet onto our website, but we're easily, you could easily study our company. We're on LinkedIn. We're on the web at pacificprivatemoney.com, and we're in the 415 at 415-883-2150. Easy to reach, easy to talk to. We love to talk about our company and our investment opportunities. We have many, many years of experience. We've got a lot of very happy clients and references. We'd love to work with you as well.
And there's also the privatemoneyloans.com, where people can register for free.
Yep, that's right. That's right. We do have that. We're always putting new investment opportunities on our proprietary website, which is privatemoneyloans.com, privatemoneyloans.com. And so that's a place. If you go there and sign up, it is a secure website, and you have to be approved, and to register it requires a password. And once you're approved, then you could go on there well, you'll receive emails regularly when we post new loan investment opportunities.
And real quick, in May, we'll have an updated version of Private Money Loans, so it'll be a lot of nice additional features.
Very good. Thanks, guys, for another good show. Mark Brown, thanks for being our guest today. Here's our thoughts for the day. Teamwork means never having to take all the blame yourself. And Will Rogers said, even if you are on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Ain't that the truth? Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.